Hey, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Well, I'm going to read you a little bit of a letter that I got because it seems to me to be part of a way of thinking that is almost like we've learned how to be helpless just by thinking in the way that we're supposed to. This man has asked me for some information about just general stuff about visas and what it costs and how you renew. Is it difficult to stay in the Philippines and so on? All fairly easy to answer and good news. But he says, I'll keep this information because it's a costly flight for me if I have to leave the country every 3 years, which is probably not even true anymore, but I'm not quite sure about that. Okay, so he said, and it's such a pity. I think a miracle must happen before I can bring my girlfriend to my country. I'm gonna flip it off again. Yeah, he said, and it's such a pity. I think a miracle must happen before I can bring my girlfriend to my country, Belgium, for a family visit. So I'm guessing he's going to live here, but he'd like to take his wife back home every so often and have a visit. So he says, even though I'll later be married, Belgian laws have become so very strict when it comes to strangers who want to visit Belgium. Reason, they think of fake marriages. They think that the mainly Asian and African partners marry in order to benefit from my country, Belgium. Oh, where have we heard that? Britain, the US, every country is like this in a way. Said, I fear that my Philippine girlfriend, even if we are married, I cannot bring her along on my family visit to Belgium. Such a pity. So what am I trying to make of that? Well, this is what I'm trying to make of that. As you think, so that's what's going to happen. And there are several stories about how whether they're true or not, or whether they're just made up to illustrate the point, is not really important. They're powerful stories. The first one that I like to think about is the salesman. He's out on the road, rather brought down, despondent, feeling like a failure, feeling that he's just not able to believe that he's going to make the sales that he needs to make, and he's really just driving around or sitting in his car afraid to go on those calls. And finally he calls his wife, and she tells him, hey, I'm really glad you called. I've got some great news for you. We won the lotto, $4 million. He said, oh my God, when did you find? She said, I just found out, looked at the numbers, $4 million. Pretty good, huh? He's stunned, and he hangs up and he thinks, I don't have to do anything now. I don't have to face these people who are just going to reject me. I don't have to do all of this. I can just go home now. And then he thinks, oh, what the hell? What do I care if they say no? So he's got 4 more calls to do. And he goes on the first call. Well, he waltzes in there and he's a 4 times over millionaire. What does he care if they don't say yes? What does he care if they don't see the quality and the value of what he has to say? And he's completely different. Now he doesn't fear failure. So he goes ahead and he makes the sale, because he is so convinced that what he's doing is right, which he has always been convinced of that. What he's not been convinced of is his ability to make the sale, to convince them with convincing arguments, with his chains of conviction and all of those things that salesmen are taught with. The no starts the sale, or the sale starts with no. He thinks about all of those and he says, well, to hell with this. This is a great product and you should be buying it. And if you're not, then you're not seeing sense. He makes one sale after the other. 4 sales later, he's on his way home. Calls his wife, says, I'll be home soon. When he gets home, he goes in the door, says, so what are we doing? This is just incredible news. She said, oh my God, you didn't believe me, did you? We haven't won a penny. Well, what happened? Well, what happened is that his way of looking at the sale that he was going to make changed. He thought about something in a different way. And it supposed to illustrate that the way that you think about something creates a sense of expectation, of reality, of how you are going to now behave. If you go along and you're balancing on a tightrope and you think that you're going to fall off, guess what happens? Because you're focusing on falling off. Let's look at another couple of things. So, there's a guy that's just been told that he's got cancer, and he's been told that they're waiting for tests, but if it's true, and it will be confirmed, chances are he has 6 months to live. Anyway, he goes into the waiting room in the hospital, and he's sitting there virtually in tears, and an old man comes in and sits next to him. He says, what's the deal, son? You know, what's happening? And he says to him, well, I've just been told that I've only got 6 months to live. So the old man says to him, so what's your point? He said, look, old man, don't start lecturing me about what's the point. I'd just been told I got 6 months to live. Okay? And the old man says, I was given 3 months to live. That was my sentence. They told me 3 months to live. The young man says, well, what's happened then? You're in the middle of your 3 months. How can you be so cheerful? He said, well, I'm not in the middle of the 3 months. He said, that was 15 years ago. I'm visiting my wife. He said, what do you mean? You told me that you had 3 months to live, and now you're saying that was 15 years ago. What's the deal? The old man said, I didn't believe them. How you think. There's another case that I think is really important, and that really further illustrates what your thinking can do. And that is, this is not a made-up one. I read this in the results of some research, and they tested a bunch of people who were in voluntary, not confinement, but voluntary in a hospital, in a mental hospital, and they all considered they were there of their own free will, but they all had severe mental problems, and they were given a test, and let's say that the average result was 50 out of 100. They then said to all of these guys, look, what we want you to do is do the test again, and this time pretend that you're fully recovered, that you're about to go out this afternoon, and you're doing this test just for fun, but actually you're all done here, you're healed. So now do the test again. And with that mindset, they did the test again, answered all the questions, one of those personality tests, answered all the questions, and everyone scored far, far higher on all of those tests. simply because they changed their mindset and they felt a different way of thinking, and they all scored higher. So the deal would be, what's the difference between feeling higher and being higher? What is the difference? Well, if you think that you don't have any mental conditioning, if you think that your thinking is not in some way affected by the way that you've been told to behave, the way that life treats you, and you think, oh, I'm not conditioned in any way, I just do what I think is right and I do it, and nothing is going to make me do something that I don't want to do. Well, just imagine you're waiting for an elevator. You're waiting for the elevator and it's two different elevators and you stand in front of the two. You don't know which one is going to come first. You've rung the bell, well, you press the buzzer, and the first one that arrives is the one that arrives. So you're standing there and it takes a moment or two and you start thinking about something else, and then you hear ping. Straight away you go over to the one that is calling you. That's conditioning. In a very, very oversimplistic way probably, but you're conditioned to, in that exact situation, when the ping goes off, you didn't even think about it. You move towards the lift that's going to take you where you want to go. So your body is actually behaving in a way which is preconditioned. Well, what's it preconditioned to? Now, the most famous example, the one that everybody uses, right, of what they call learned helplessness. In other words, you've learned that you're going to fail, right? And we got all these voices in our heads, not you and me, of course. Present company are always accepted. But a lot of other people who are not as fortunate as you and I, and not as clever as you and I, hear voices in their head which tell them that they don't have a chance of succeeding at anything. Learned helplessness. So you think about the Rottweiler, which grows to a weight of like 150 pounds sometimes. Very powerful dogs, knock a man down easily. Quite a feared dog as well because of this. So the man buys a puppy. Well, it's just like a bundle of fur, you know, all cuddly and helpless and falling about and all of that. But he trains it from that moment that he gets it. He trains it because he doesn't want a dog which is 150 pounds to be badly behaved when he has visitors. Who wants a 150 pound dog jumping up on you when it's being ever so friendly and knocking you down? So he gets the collar and he puts the collar on the little puppy and he ties it to the leg of an armchair. An armchair that weighs about probably maybe 50 pounds. So the little dog tries to move away. Well, it can't, can it? It can't drag a 50-pound chair because it's only about 2 pounds itself. So it learns after a while that as soon as the leash goes around the leg of this chair, it doesn't try anymore. It simply lies down and takes a nap, and it behaves. It learns to behave. Learned helplessness. So time goes by and our 2-pound puppy becomes a 150-pound monster dog that could drag that 50-pound chair around the room with the entire family sitting in it. But it doesn't. Why? Well, it's been taught to be helpless. As soon as it sees the leash go onto its collar and the handle slipped around the leg of that chair, it says, what can I do? And that's what we are all doing to an extent. This brings us back to our friend from Belgium. And if I can pull up the letter, and I probably can't. No, I'm not even going to try. Learned helplessness. Okay. I said, I understand, my friend. Very difficult, but if you keep on trying, you will overcome the problems. Good luck and keep in touch. And then, as an afterthought, I thought maybe I could help a little more on this. And I said, you must see success clearly in your mind. Practice it on a daily basis. If you practice seeing failure, that is what you will get. Both success and failure start in your mind as a thought. It really is your choice. Now, when I quit being a musician and I sold my trombone, this is a story of great irony. I quit being a musician, and I finally, but at the time, I would love to have gone to America from the UK to be where all of my idols in music lived and played, and go to LA and be a musician. And I had to sell my trombone to make the ticket. Now, isn't that ironic? I'd been looking forward to making it to America for so long, but then I wanted to go as a musician and I didn't have the money, so I had to sell my trombone to buy a ticket. You have to laugh about that now, don't you? Right? But anyway, that was really a point of being able to see the success that would come from doing a thing. Now, when I was a trombone player, I used to practice. Now, when you practice an instrument, you actually go through certain exercises. These are the exercises that an athlete goes through to keep his muscles in tone, and you have these things that you do, and they keep you with your skills into your lip flexibilities and long notes and stuff like that. You practice all of this stuff. You go through exercises, and your mind works in sync with the body. Now, when I had to sell my trombone, out of pure habit, I used to think playing. I would think playing. That's another mosquito night tonight. I would think playing. I would think the positions of the trombone. I would think putting my mouth to the mouthpiece. I would think the long note. In other words, I practiced doing what I normally did in real. I practiced it in my mind. I didn't play then for 17 years, and then I began to think maybe there's something that I could do. I'd moved to Florida by that time from California, and I thought there must be something that I can do. But hell, 17 years and I haven't blown a single note. I would be terrible. And I still thought and kept thinking, maybe I can do this. And then a friend who was a lot better off than I was spoke to his wife and said, I'm going to buy Terry a trombone so that we can get to hear him play again. And that's what they did. They financed the purchase of a trombone, and I started playing again. Now, I was really amazed that it took literally only days to weeks to regain a terrific portion of my skills from all of those years ago. And I realized that it was because I'd been practicing in my mind. And there have been various researching experiments done to see how this works, where they've taken basketball players and they've separated them. Let's say that it was 20 of this, 20 of that. 20 of them were instructed to practice for 2 hours a day shooting hoops, and 20 of them were told that they were not to do anything at all, and the other 20 were told to think about practicing and how their body would feel, how they would shoot, how they would imagine themselves rising and the ball going in every time. Now, the ones that hadn't done anything, of course, hadn't made any progress. The ones that had actually been shooting had made some progress. But the ones that had actually visualized successful hoop, successfully sinking that ball in every time, had actually made gains. In other words, what you think is definitely to do with that's the birthplace of the success of whatever it is that you want to do. Whether that is going for a job, or whether it's playing basketball, or whether it's golf, or whatever, your skill at visualizing, some people are virtuoso at visualizing. I've spoken to people who say, I can't visualize at all. And I say, what does your mother look like? And they say, well, she's slim and fair hair, growing a little, and they described to me perfectly. So how did you describe that? Well, I mean, I can see her, can't I? Isn't that visualization? Isn't that visualizing something? Now, when an artist or a furniture maker or anybody who's creating something is about to do the work, he creates the image in his mind and he creates it done. That's how something gets built. Now, it doesn't actually matter whether what's being built is a work of art or a piece of furniture or a dog kennel. It really doesn't matter. If the visualization of how the thing will be built is there, then it can be built. If you can visualize it, it can be built. So, to our friend who is now thinking about successfully being able to take his wife into his home country, things will change if he practices being successful at that particular action. And if you are in a situation where you have something coming up where it's important that you successfully make that move, then don't wait until you're sitting outside in the waiting room about to go in for an interview which you have already made up your mind you haven't got a dog's chance. Start now. 3 weeks' time you can have a lot of successful interviews in your head in 3 weeks' time. So my encouragement is to do what has to be done in your head first. Now, I'll give you one more story that illustrates this point, and this is a true story. I remember reading in the newspaper many years ago, about 200 or 300 years ago, in the UK, that someone that I've since got used to calling a housewife from Sheffield, and she had written in and she had said, she'd written into a newspaper and she said, you know, just wanted to share this, but whenever I have anything to do, she said, I'm a dressmaker and I make dresses for people, and I always hear voices which can either say bad things or good things. And what I do is I do my work, I make what I've been asked to make, and all the time I hear the people I know who I admire and respect, and I hear them say, my God, Joyce, how do you do such incredibly beautiful work? This is just wonderful. I'm looking at this now. How did you do? And she said, I hear them, I make them say all of those wonderful things. And then, because I've heard my friends say all of those wonderful things, I do beautiful work. So which comes first, those voices or the work? Well, what voices are you going to allow in your head? Is it going to be that one that says, oh, are you insane? Sorry, that's my favourite, isn't it? Or are you going to hear someone say, wow, what a great job you do. I would love to be able to do what you can do. Good luck. If it's in 3 weeks' time, get working. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Bye for now.